Density. Can you change the density of water, H2O? Let's find out. Welcome to Learning with the Boys and Girls Club and Miss Newman. Let's get started. What do you need? Just your thinking cap and a pencil and paper. And if you really want to have some fun, ask your parents if you can try the experiment yourself. And pause the video as you go along. With your pencil and paper, write the answers down on paper and then start the video back again. Let's get started. Our objectives today are to understand how density affects an object's ability to float and to understand the relationship of density and mass. Enough of that. Let's get learning. Today we're going to learn a few vocabulary words that are going to really help us with our lesson. Pause the video and write these words down, look them up, and that will help you with the lesson. Buoyancy, molecule, hypothesis, density, sink, solid, and float. After you've looked these words up, we'll go over them together. Hypothesis. Do you know what scientific method means? Ask a question and then gather information. Look, listen, taste, touch, smell, read, ask an expert, just gather information and then form a hypothesis. Guess an answer, then test your hypothesis. Do an experiment to see if you're right. Share your results. Tell other people what you have learned. We're going to do just that today. What is a molecule? A molecule is the smallest particle of any substance. Did you know that if we break a molecule, the properties of that substance are lost? We're going to find out what that means in our experiment very soon. Buoyancy. What is buoyancy? The ability of an object to float. If gravity goes down, then buoyancy comes up. That's what we need to know. Density. How close together an object's molecules are. We just learned what a molecule is, so now we know that how close together an object's molecules are is density. What is density? It's defined as the measure of the amount of mass in a given volume. It is a measure of tightly packed volumes and how heavy mass the molecules are in an object. What does that mean? It means that molecules in different objects are arranged differently, is what it really means. They may be packed closely together in a heavy metal block, or it could have to do with liquid. Having a lower density than water means that a beach ball's buoyancy force is higher than the weight of the beach ball, so the ball floats. That's all it means. If that doesn't make any sense to you right now, it will in a little while. What does it mean to float? To be held up or supported by something in liquid. Float means to stay above the surface of the water, like a duck. What does it mean to sink? To fall below the surface of something. To float or to sink. Sink means to go below the surface of the water. Hypothesis. Can you change the density of sugar water? What about water? Sugar water and plain water mixed. I would like for you to stop the video, pause the video, and think about it. Write down, can you change the density of sugar water? Can you change the density of water? What about sugar water and plain water? And do you think that a carrot or a grape or a ball will float in water? What about sugar water? What about sugar water and plain water mixed? We'll be back. Questions. These are questions we will answer. What will happen to an object in the water? How will sugar change the density of water? Are different liquids more or less dense? What objects do you think would sink in more or less dense water? What objects do you think would float in both sugar water and plain water? Let's work on your hypothesis questions. Pause the video and write these questions down. I think the carrot will blank because blank. I observed blank when blank. I think the carrot floated in the blank because blank. I think the carrot sank in the blank because blank. Come back after you've written all of these questions down, and you will use these questions when you pause the video before and after our experiment. Let's do an experiment. Let's get started with our experiment. We have a jar for sugar water, a jar for water, and a much larger jar that we're going to put both water and sugar water in a moment. You'll see that jar in just a moment. It's really hot. We have a measuring cup. We have carrots. You might want to use grapes, but we're going to use carrots for our experiment. We have a spoon. We have a measuring device, but we're going to use a teaspoon, or you can use a half a cup. We're going to use half a cup because we're using something heavier than a grape. The heavier it is, the more dense it is. So it depends on what you're using. So we are going to go ahead and get started. This is very, very hot. So if you're doing the experiment, please get someone to help you. We're using 1 cup, and we have measurements on the side, but you might want to use a measuring cup to measure yours, and that would be 1 cup. So we have 1 cup each, and then we'll put our large jar here. So now we have 3 measuring cups. 1, 2, 3. 3 jars and a measuring cup. Okay, so we're going to put the measuring cup off to the side. We're going to put a carrot in this one and a carrot in this one. So right now they both are at the bottom. Now we're going to put some sugar in this one, and we're going to stir, 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 stir. Now while we're doing this, don't forget that we just did our hypothesis. And our hypothesis was, can you change the density of water? What do you think will happen? Remember, we talked about, will the sugar water change density of the water with the carrot? Will the carrot float in sugar water? Will the carrot float in water? And will the carrot float in sugar water and plain water mixed? We are about to find out. I got sugar everywhere. Try not to do that when you do your experiment with your family. If you do, make sure you clean up. Okay, I mixed and I mixed and I mixed. Now what has happened to our carrot? The sugar water has made the carrot float, but the carrot in the plain water is still on the bottom. Does that match your hypothesis? Now I'm going to mix the plain water and the sugar water.
What has happened? The carrot looks like it wants to fall to the bottom again. Wow, we're going to discuss that in just a moment.
Okay, stop the video for a moment. Can you change the density of water? What are your observations? What are your conclusions? Pause the video, write down your answers to the questions, and then come back and let's see if yours match mine. The density of an object determines its buoyancy. Objects float in liquids that are denser than they are and sink to the bottom that are less dense than they are. In this experiment, the carrot was denser than the plain water, and so it sank to the bottom of the container. But when the sugar dissolved into the water, the carrot was less dense than the sugar water and floated to the top. When we added the regular water back, therefore, yes, you can change the density of water. And in summary, don't forget, an object placed in fluid will float if it is less dense than the fluid, and it will sink if it is denser than the fluid. Now, wasn't that cool? Look for other lessons, such as how heat changes the temperature of objects, cool periodic table real life stuff, what silly putty was really for, and why all this really matters. See you soon.